Welcome back to Haunted Canada, but before we unearth today's most spooky and terrifying ghost stories in Alberta, Canada, I wanted to say a big thank you to all our subscribers, and to those of you who are new to this channel, welcome, and please hit the subscribe button, like, and leave a comment. Your support is truly appreciated. I love reading your comments, and if you have stayed in or visited any of these haunted places, please let me know in the comments. If there are other haunted locations that should be included on this list, let me know in the comments and I can add to a future video. Also, you can listen to my podcast, Haunted Canada, where I cover stories of ghosts, hauntings, and true crime. It's available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Now let's explore the 10 most haunted places in Alberta, Canada. Number 10, the Rutherford House in Edmonton. Located on the University of Alberta campus overlooking the North Saskatchewan River is Rutherford House. It was once the home of Alberta's first premier, Alexander Rutherford, and the location where I start the University of Alberta Ghost Tours. Yet it is also known as a very haunted house. The ghost of a little boy that is heard running around on the second floor of the house. When staff go upstairs to investigate, out of the corner of their eye, they will see a little boy around age 7 or 8 running from room to room. On other occasions, staff will hear the sound of a ball bouncing down the grand staircase and landing in the front foyer. When staff go to the foyer to see where the sound is coming from, the bouncing stops and no ball is ever found. In the master bedroom are antique hairbrushes similar to the ones that Mrs. Rutherford would use to brush her hair every night when she lived in their mansion in the early 1900s. Employees will hear sounds in the room as if furniture is being dragged across the floor, yet when they check, the room is empty, but the hairbrushes are always moved from the dresser to the nightstand. Number 9, the Galt Museum and Archives, formerly the Galt Hospital in Lethbridge. The Galt Hospital was the primary hospital in Lethbridge in the early 1900s and is one of the most haunted buildings in southern Alberta. Today, it is the Galt Museum and Archives, yet it is the old children's ward on the 3rd floor that is the most haunted. Staff have heard children talking and laughing in the former ward. Yet, it is also believed that the ghost children like to play pranks on the current staff and are fascinated with computers. When staff return to their desks, they will find handprints all over their computer screens. When people are outside the museum in the evening, they can often see the ghost children in the 3rd floor window waving at them. One of the most gruesome ghost stories is that of 60-year-old farmer George Bailey, who in 1933 was at the Galt Hospital in for surgery and was being wheeled into the elevator. However, it malfunctioned and George fell to the basement where he was found shuffling around with a severe head injury. Sadly, he died the next day. Employees who work at the museum today have often heard the sound of shuffling in the basement and even the voice of George saying, "Hello." Employees say that the elevator will run on its own, and blue lights are often seen floating down the hallways. Number 8, the Frank Slide, located in Frank. At 4:10 a.m. on April 29, 1909, in the small town of Frank, Alberta, at the base of Turtle Mountain, over 110 million tons of limestone rock slid down the mountain and slammed into the town. Within 100 seconds, the rocks reached up the adjoining hills, obliterating the eastern edge of Frank, the CPR railway line, and the coal mine. Between 70 to 90 people were killed in the slide, crushing homes and burying people, with many buried beneath the rubble, still to this day. And today, you can still hear their ghostly screams. People who are in the area report feeling a ghostly presence, seeing eerie mists, hearing unexplained screams, and witnessing unusual lights. Tourists will feel cold spots on hot summer days and the feeling like someone is tapping their shoulder when there is no one around. On other occasions, staff will see the ghostly apparition of men, women, and children, sometimes with terrible injuries, walking amongst the rocks and boulders. Number 7, City Hall in Calgary. One of Calgary's most historic and haunted buildings is located at 800 McLeod Street in the heart of downtown, is City Hall, a 4-story building with too many rooms to count. It opened in 1911, and the building had a massive 4-faced clock that was fitted with a 1,500-pound bell. The ground floor served as the headquarters for the Calgary Police Service, with 15 jail cells, 12 for males, and 3 for females. There are many ghosts still wandering throughout the historic building to this day, including the first female prisoner, Kathleen "Kitty" Quinn, a local madam. Also spotted are the ghosts of 2 male prisoners, J.W. Lewis and William Morgan, who died in their cells. Many city staff and security guards have reported seeing the ghostly apparition of a man and a woman. A few former security guards and other employees have reported seeing the spirits. An anonymous contract employee said, "They know something, that's for sure," and witnessed a colleague flee the building one night, convinced he had seen a presence. Don, a former city communication official in the late 1990s, described his own experience saying, "The ghost may be a former prisoner who died years ago in the police lockup." Don also said that the female ghost was more complicated to explain. He said, "She's seen on the old stairs. We have no record of any female dying in the building. I've heard that she might be a former alderman's wife or a madam who had been locked up in the basement cells once." While others believe the ghost could be Rudolph Eagle, who installed the historic clock, yet sadly died in a hunting accident in 1913. Others think the female ghost might be Amelia Adcock, the city's first female manager and acting city clerk, who sadly died young in 1922. City Hall is still a place of business. It has so many ghosts roaming throughout the historic building that it is definitely one of Alberta's most haunted buildings. Number 6, Jasper Park Lodge in Jasper. Jasper Park Lodge is one of the most popular destinations in Jasper National Park. Established in 1915 as a tent city, it is known worldwide for its history as a luxury resort and for its many ghost stories and paranormal encounters. Yet, one of the most haunted buildings at the lodge is the beautiful Point Cabin. Built in 1928, it is secluded at the edge of the resort and is layered with ghosts, hauntings, and a tragic death in its past. On the second floor of Point Cabin is the card room where you're most likely to encounter the ghost of a chambermaid, and it stems from a tragic accident that forever changed Jasper Lodge. As a maid was cleaning the tiny card room, she lost her balance and fell down the stairs, breaking her neck and dying. Since then, many guests have felt her ghost wandering throughout the luxurious cabin. Guests, maintenance staff, and current housekeepers have had their own strange and terrifying experiences. The mischievous spirit lets her presence be known by making the lights flicker, turning on and off the television, doors open, then slamming shut all by themselves, and the fire in the stone fireplace will suddenly roar to life as if fueled by an unknown force. Cleaning staff often report that they smell the distinct scent of cigar smoke when there's nobody around. If that's not unsettling enough, the housekeeping staff have reported they have felt a cold hand on their shoulder, pushing them as they descend down the steep staircase. At the very spot where the maid fell, broke her neck, and died in the 1940s. In the dining room of the main lodge, the ghostly apparition of an older man and women dressed in early 1900s clothing have been seen dancing in the main dining room to a melody only they can hear. When guests and staff see the ghost couple dancing, they're left frightened, since as a couple waltzes, no feet can be seen. They appear to be floating across the dance floor, wrapped in a romantic embrace for eternity. Also, in the dining room, there's a photograph titled Hall Number 2 Picture, which has been viewed thousands of times by ghost hunters and paranormal investigators. The photo was taken in the early 1920s in the dining area, when the photographer captured a mysterious person in the right corner sitting in a chair. It's hard to make out the blurred features, but it is clear that there is someone or something that maybe looks like a woman sitting in the corner of the great room. Number 5, the Deane House in Calgary. The Deane House, located in Calgary's trendy Inglewood neighborhood, is a historic home that is now a popular restaurant. Constructed in 1906 for Captain Richard Deane, the final Northwest Mounted Police Superintendent in Calgary. Deane built the house for his wife Martha, yet sadly, she died before it was completed. For many years, it served as a boarding house and an art gallery, yet the house has been filled with tragedy. In 1933, a young boy took his life in the attic, and in 1952, a tenant murdered his wife in the house, then killed himself. With all the tragedy, the house has been plagued with ghosts, hauntings, and paranormal phenomenon. Guests and staff report hearing an antique piano playing, yet when they check, the room is empty and there is no one sitting at the piano. They can often smell cigar smoke when there's no one in the room, and encounters with numerous apparitions, which is often captured in people's pictures. Yet it is in the attic where the most terrifying things seem to happen. Cleaning staff will find bloodstains on the floor next to a closet. Yet no matter how many times they clean the floor and close the closet door, they return the next morning to find the bloodstains have returned and the door wide open. This blood is believed to be from the death that happened in 1933. Many report having run-ins with dark, ghostly figures that they will see in the restaurant or floating down the staircase. But it always seems that the apparition is missing everything below the knees and will just vanish. Others will hear disembodied voices when rooms are empty, and an antique phone that is not connected and is only used as show will often be heard ringing. Number 4, the Princess Theatre in Edmonton. Located on trendy White Avenue in the old Strathcona area of Edmonton is the historic Princess Theatre. This is a story that I was the first to uncover and talk about on the Edmonton Ghost Tours. Built in 1914, it is the oldest surviving theatre in Western Canada and has its own spirit known as the Woman in White. The story of the Woman in White goes back to the early 1940s, when a young lady by the name of Sarah Ann arrived in the city of Strathcona. Sarah Ann had no family or friends with her and decided to rent a room on the 3rd floor of the Princess Theatre that was a rooming house at that particular time. After a few months, Sarah Ann met and fell in love with a young man who quickly proposed. Sarah Ann was so excited that she went to a local wedding shop and bought a beautiful and simple white dress for her wedding day. However, 3 days before the wedding was to take place, her fiancé completely called off the entire wedding. He hopped on the first train that morning and he left town, abandoning pregnant Sarah Ann. Sarah Ann was devastated. She returned to her room on the 3rd floor of the Princess Theatre, put on her white wedding dress that she was supposed to wear in 3 more days on her wedding day, and sadly, tragically, she hung herself in her bedroom. What is even more heartbreaking is that her body was not discovered until 15 days later, when the landlord came to collect that month's rent. Since that time, many believe that Sarah Ann's spirit is still present inside the theater. On many occasions, she is seen wandering up and down the grand staircase and hovering above the projection room. Lights flicker on and off, and workers can often hear crying and sobbing coming from the third floor that is now empty and boarded up. Number 3, the Zoo Bridge in Calgary. The Zoo Bridge in Calgary is the site of a tragic murder and a haunted history that still lingers to this day. In 1946, a 6-year-old Donnie Goss was playing in the park near the bridge and was lured into the bushes and murdered. The murderer was eventually caught and hung later that year. Yet many believe that Donnie's spirit is still wandering under the Zoo Bridge, crying out for help. Staff who work in the area have reported paranormal encounters. While working in the area, they will hear the sounds of a young boy calling out for help. On other occasions, staff will hear knocking on the maintenance door. When they open the door to the parking lot, it is empty, yet they will always find a bouncing ball. Many believe that it is little Donnie wanting to play. Donnie's ghost also likes to play with kids his own age. One story that I talk about on my podcast, Haunted Canada, is of a family that is walking near the bridge when a little girl is seen talking to someone in an empty field. When her parents asked her who she was talking to, she said Donnie, and that he wanted her to stay and play. When the parents asked her where Donnie was, the little girl said, "Right next to you, Mommy." Number 2, the Firkins house in Edmonton. The Firkins house was built in 1911 by Dr. Ashley Firkins and his wife Blanche. It was donated to Fort Edmonton Park in 1992, but the former owners warned everyone that the house was haunted. Staff and visitors have heard a male voice singing a lullaby, and a ghostly woman is seen in the house and shows up in photos taken in the living room. Tourists who have visited the house have reported seeing a woman in white floating by the bookcase, while others have reported seeing a young boy dressed in 1950s clothing who looks very sickly standing on the staircase. At the end of the evening, when staff were leaving and walking away from the house, they often report seeing a man's face in the window and witness lights going on and off in the bedroom on the top floor. Most staff are too afraid to re-enter the historic home. And the number 1 haunted place in Alberta is the Banff Springs Hotel in Banff. The Banff Springs Hotel, also known as the Castle in the Rockies. This hotel opened in 1888 and has welcomed guests from around the world. However, this historic hotel is filled with ghosts and paranormal activity that has been scaring guests and employees for decades. One of the most famous spirits is the Ghost Bride. As the story goes, a young bride was walking down the elegant staircase on her wedding day when she tripped on her long veil. She fell down the stairs and broke her neck. Her ghostly spirit, still dressed in her wedding gown, now roams the hotel. Guests and employees have seen the Ghost Bride descending the staircase with the long veil trailing behind, while others have seen her dancing in the ballroom to only music she can hear. Yet the Ghost Bride is not the only spirit present at the hotel. There is also the tale of former bellman, Sam McCauley, who worked at the hotel in the 1960s and 1970s. Yet, even after Sam's death, his ghost has returned to the place that he loved so much. Guests will often report an encounter with an older bellman who helps them with their luggage, but when the guest turns around to thank him, Sam has vanished. However, most scary stories seem to center around room 873. The story goes that a family was murdered in that very room. The room was bricked up by the hotel after guests reported terrifying paranormal encounters. Guests have reported hearing disembodied voices and seeing bloody handprints on the walls, while others report having an overwhelming sense of dread and foreboding when walking past room 873. And that concludes the 10 most haunted places in Alberta, Canada. From the faint cries beneath Zoo Bridge in Calgary, to the ghost children waving from the old children's ward at the Galt Hospital in Lethbridge, and the woman in white who wanders throughout the Princess Theatre in Edmonton. Alberta is filled with dark and spooky stories of ghosts, hauntings, and the paranormal. If you have ever visited one of these locations, or if there are other haunted spots I should include for future videos, please let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to stay up to date for future episodes. Thank you for listening, and remember, stay haunted.